For the last 11 months, everything in life has just felt so upside down. Church went home, school went home, work went home. Home used to be the place we wanted to escape to. Now it's the place we want to escape from. Life just got turned a little upside down. Ministry got turned upside down. Under normal conditions, you would probably sit with a family in the hospital. You would go and visit a grieving family. But in the last 11 months, ministry has just got flipped kind of upside down. Your church may be a little upside down right now. This pandemic that we've been experiencing has surfaced another pandemic, a pandemic of division. And you saw division surface. You saw it surface when you decided to go virtual last March. When you decided to regather in person, division surfaced. Because of your mask policy, division surfaced. When racial tensions began to brew, division surfaced. During our election season, division surfaced. And the church just kind of feels a little upside down. Everything feels so upside down, and we just kind of want to cry out, "How long, O Lord?" How long until what's upside down gets flipped right side up? You remember the children's song? My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. And yet maybe if you're like me, you're wondering, is God big enough, strong enough, mighty enough to take care of this upside down mess that we find ourselves in? Can God do anything? Is he able? I guess the question that we're really asking is, does God still reign? In the middle of this upside down world, is God still in control? And that's certainly a question that the people of Israel would have been asking as they stared down the barrel of Babylonian exile. King Hezekiah had welcomed in an envoy of Babylonians. He gave them a VIP tour, showed them all the beautiful aspects of the palace, opened up Jerusalem's vault. And when Isaiah finds out what Hezekiah has done, he says, well, that was dumb. Because one day the Babylonians are going to come and they're going to wreak havoc on this place. Jerusalem is going to be a heap of ruins. Your descendants are going to be carried off into exile. And from the middle of that exile, they would probably ask, does God still reign? Is God still in control even when this world seems so upside down? That's the question we're asking today. And fortunately, God gives Isaiah an answer. God says, Isaiah, I want my people to know who I am. I want them to know that even when this world seems so upside down, so out of control, that I still reign. And so Isaiah gives God's people a word of consolation, a word of comfort in Isaiah 40. If you want to follow along with us, that's where we're going to be today, Isaiah 40. The verses will also be on the screen that I'm going to read. And after this word of consolation, this word of comfort, God gives Isaiah 4 pictures of encouragement, 4 images to encourage people who find themselves living in an upside-down world. And to help us with these 4 pictures, these 4 paintings, I have my friend Hope here. And as we're walking through this message, Hope is going to be painting these 4 different images in these archways that you see. These archways kind of represent the challenges of life that we encounter. the problems that we experience, and the questions that we ask along the way. And so what Isaiah basically does in our text is he grabs us by the hand and he walks us one archway at a time and says, let me paint a picture for you. 4 pictures, in fact, each one with a word of encouragement. And so as Isaiah takes us by the hand and walks us into the first archway, he says, let me paint picture number 1. Let me give you the first word of encouragement. God is big enough to reign over all of creation. There is nothing in all creation that is too big for our big God. Take a look at what Isaiah says in chapter 40, verse 12. He says, who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, or with the breadth of his hand marked off the heavens? Who has held the dust of the earth in a basket, or weighed the mountains on the scales and the hills in a balance? Isaiah begins by simply asking a series of questions. The human hand can cup about 6 to 8 ounces of water when we put them together before they begin kind of seeping through the cracks and crevices between our fingers. But when God was creating our planet, Isaiah says it's kind of like he just scooped up some water in his hands and says, here's the Atlantic, here's the Pacific. Because our God is big. Our God is so big that when he was making the cosmos, he didn't need a ruler or measuring tape or a telescope. He didn't have to do some astronomical calculations. No, God simply opened up his hand, measured from his pinky to his thumb. Let's rewind back to 6th grade science class. You learned in 6th grade science class, or whenever it was, that the Earth and the Sun are 93 million miles apart, approximately. And it takes light from the Sun 8 minutes to travel to Earth. Now, I know 93 million miles is just kind of an abstract number. It's difficult to visualize 93 million miles, so let me try to help. Imagine this golf ball represents the Earth, but not to scale, just the object itself. And this tennis ball represents the Sun. Again, not to scale, they're not that close in size. But what I want to highlight is the distance separating the two. There's about 1 inch between the Earth and the Sun. That 1 inch is going to represent 93 million miles for our scale. Outside of the Sun, you may know what the nearest star system is to us, Alpha Centauri. So using this scale, if 1 inch equals 93 million miles, where exactly would Alpha Centauri be? Not in this studio. In fact, Alpha Centauri would be on the other side of Joplin, where I'm recording this, about 4 miles away. What about the furthest known galaxy? Furthest known galaxy is 13.3 billion light years away. Now again, this scale, 1 inch equals 93 million miles. Where would that galaxy be? Well, using this scale, it would be on the other side of the Sun. Because our God is big. Now, I spent an hour in my office one afternoon just kind of crunching numbers, trying to do the mathematical calculation to figure this out. And I'm sure I probably forgot to carry a 1 somewhere, so somebody can correct me who's a math expert. But here's the point. The point is, when God was creating everything, he didn't have to sit in his office and crunch some numbers. All God had to do was open his hand. 13.3 billion light years fit between his pinky and his thumb. Our God is big. Our God is so big that he takes mountains and weighs them on his bathroom scale. Our God is so big that when he created everything, he didn't need a team of scientists, a group of advisors, or counselors. Later on in the text, Isaiah will tell us that next to God, we are like grasshoppers, just hopping around, trying not to get squashed by our big God. So as Isaiah takes our hand and walks us over to the first painting, in the first archway, Isaiah says, God is big enough to reign over all creation. There is nothing in all creation that is too big for our God. And there's nothing too small either, including a virus that has wreaked havoc on this planet, a virus that the scientific community can't seem to figure out. But it didn't catch God by surprise. He wasn't unprepared for it. Didn't catch him off guard. And neither did that cancer diagnosis that your spouse unexpectedly received, or that natural disaster that wreaked havoc on your community. There is nothing in all creation that is too big or too small for our big God. So if God is big enough to deal with this upside-down world that we find ourselves in, then why do we still find ourselves in this upside-down world? Maybe the problem is that God isn't strong enough. God is big enough, but he's just not strong enough. But Isaiah says, no, that's not it. And so he takes us by the hand and he escorts us to archway number 2. And when we get to archway number 2, he says, let me paint a second picture for you. And in this picture, he gives us a second word of encouragement. Isaiah says that God is strong enough to reign over all powers. There is no nation, kingdom, or empire that is outside the clutches or the grasp or the reach of God. Take a look at what he says, starting in verse 15. He says, surely the nations are like a drop in a bucket. They are regarded as dust on the scales. He weighs the islands as though they were fine dust. Down to verse 17, he says, before him, all the nations are as nothing. They are regarded by him as worthless and less than nothing. Kingdoms, empires, nations, they are nothing. Nothing but a single drop in a bucket. Nothing but a single speck of dust on a bathroom scale. Let me ask you, the last time that you walked into your bathroom and you stepped on your bathroom scale, did you take time to grab a cloth and wipe off every speck of dust? I mean, after all, you want to make sure that the weight is accurate, that it's not making you appear as if you weigh more than you actually do. No, you didn't do that? You didn't take the extra effort to wipe off the specks of dust? No, of course not. Because we don't really worry about specks of dust on a bathroom scale. In fact, we don't really even notice them. And neither does God. God isn't too concerned about specks of dust or drops of water in a bucket. And he says, compared to him, nations, kingdoms, empires, rulers, they are just like drops in a bucket, like a speck of dust on a bathroom scale. I'm not sure that God is all that concerned with who's in the White House, or who has the Senate, or who has the House of Reps, or who's in the governor's office. And I'm not suggesting that Christians shouldn't run for office or shouldn't vote, but I am suggesting that our God is so strong that he can pummel any president, blue or red. He can annihilate any nation, depose any dictator, remove any ruler. And he can do it in a snap. That's what Isaiah goes on to tell us in verses 23 and 24. He brings princes to nothing and reduces the rulers of this world to empty nothingness. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, no sooner do they take root in the ground than he blows on them and they wither, and a whirlwind sweeps them away like chaff. Rulers are nothing to God. When God has had enough, when he gets tired of a wicked, corrupt government or regime, he simply throughout history, there have been wicked and corrupt, evil regimes, nations, powers who have been steamrolling down the tracks of wickedness and corruption, apparently unstoppable. I gotta admit, I was a little bit of a latecomer to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I was never really a comic book guy, didn't really care for superhero movies until I saw Iron Man. And in Iron Man, I found a hero I could relate to. I mean, outside of his exceptional wealth and his extraordinary intelligence, he's just like you and me. He wasn't manufactured in a lab somewhere. He wasn't given some magical serum. He's not some alien from some foreign planet. Yet he's always able to outsmart, outwit, outmaneuver, overpower the most villainous of villains. Until he and the Avengers team encounter a villain so villainous, so intelligent, so powerful, that with a single, he's able to destroy, annihilate half of the universe. Thanos appeared to be steamrolling down the tracks of corruption and wickedness, apparently unstoppable. That is, until Tony Stark, Iron Man, gets his fingers on the Infinity Gauntlet, and he says those 4 words, "I am Iron Man," and he simply... And that's what Isaiah means. When he says, when God has had enough, he simply... It's like God says 3 simple words, "I am Yahweh." And then he simply... There is no nation, no superpower, no ruler, no king who can dominate the king. So as Isaiah walks us over to the second archway, and he paints this picture for us, he gives us the second word of encouragement. He reminds us that God is strong enough to reign over all powers. There is no nation that can defy our God. Some of you churches, you may have a missionary couple that you support, and maybe they're serving in some closed country. Their life has been in jeopardy. Maybe there's been a bounty placed on their head. You had scheduled a video chat with them recently, but they had to cancel for safety reasons. And so as you pray for them on a weekly basis, you wonder, is there anything that can stop that wicked regime that's ruling over them from steamrolling down the tracks of wickedness and corruption? And Isaiah says, yeah, there is something. So if God is big enough, and God is strong enough, then why is it that you and I find ourselves in this upside down world? Maybe the problem is that God isn't mighty enough. He's not mighty enough to take care of alternative gods, his rivals. But Isaiah takes us by the hand and he walks us to the third archway. And he says, again, let me paint you a picture. Let me give you a third image, a third painting, a third word of encouragement. He tells us God is mighty enough to reign over all rivals, to dominate all alternatives, to paralyze all pretenders to the throne. Take a look at what he says in verses 18 through 20. To whom then will you compare God? What image will you compare him to? As for an idol, a metalworker casts it, and a goldsmith overlays it with gold, and fashions silver chains for it. A man too poor to present such an offering selects wood that will not rot. He looks for a skilled worker to set up an idol that will not topple. Time and time again, the people of Israel would resort to alternative gods. Whenever God didn't act the way they wanted him to, when they wanted him to, they would turn to cheap substitutes, poor imitations, knockoff gods. But eventually, those knockoff gods made of wood or gold, they would just topple over. So, it's possible that they tended to turn to their captors' gods, the gods of the Babylonians, the stars. And so a little bit later in this text, God basically says, why would anybody look to the heavens, look to the stars for divine direction? God says, I made each star. I name each star. I call them to line up in the night sky every night, and each one listens to my voice. So why would anybody turn to the stars for divine direction? Whether it's idols made of wood or gold, or stars up in the night sky, they're all just cheap substitutes, poor imitations of the real thing, knockoff gods. But don't we do the same thing the Israelites did? When God doesn't do what we want, when we want, how we want, we tend to turn to our own cheap substitutes, poor imitations, knockoff gods. In places where copyrights and trademarks aren't all that big of a concern, it's pretty easy to find knockoff products, cheap substitutes, poor imitations. Let me share a few of them with you. Maybe you're in the market for a new set of kicks, some new shoes. Don't miss the sale on the latest Mikey shoes. And while you're looking for your new set of Mikeys, maybe you get a little bit hungry. Stop and have a bite to eat at Master Beef. It's what's for dinner. Or maybe you've got a son or daughter, a niece or nephew, and they're really wanting a 1990s handheld throwback video game console. Look no further than Game Child, a gender-neutral, politically correct version of Game Boy. Maybe you've been wanting to get a new web browser that also provides some UV protection from the sun. Try out Internet Explorer 9 sunscreen. And who knows? Maybe this version of Internet Explorer will actually work. Or maybe you're just sick and tired of all the debates between Mac and PC, and you really want a third-party alternative. Try out Microsoft Bimbos. I know these are silly, but don't we do the same thing? Don't we turn to our own cheap substitutes? To our own Microsoft Bimbos? For some of you, maybe it's your church building. You think about how much of your elders' meetings are devoted to your facilities, how much of your budget is dedicated to your facilities. The thought of going virtual back in March seemed like the end of the world because your church building had become your alternative God, your Microsoft Bimbos. Maybe it wasn't your building, though. Maybe it's your attendance numbers. You've kind of wrapped up your identity in your attendance. And whether it was pre-COVID or because of COVID, when your attendance numbers began to decline, so did your identity. because those attendance numbers, they were your cheap substitute God, your Microsoft bimbos. But maybe it's not anything to do with the church at all. Maybe your cheap substitute is mindless entertainment. At the end of a long day of work, you want nothing more than just to go home, grab the remote, kick your feet up, lay your head back, and just check your brain as you engage in some entertainment while your kids run around on the floor next to your feet and your spouse cleans up the house. For others of you, maybe it's sexual satisfaction, maybe it's your political affiliation, but they're all just cheap substitutes, poor imitations of the real things, Microsoft bimbos. And Isaiah wants us to know that as he paints this picture for us underneath the third archway, that our God is mighty enough to reign over all rivals. Everything else is just a cheap substitute, a Microsoft bimbos. So if God is big enough and strong enough and mighty enough, then why do we still find ourselves in this upside down world? Maybe the problem is that God just doesn't care enough. It's not that God couldn't do something. He's just not all that interested. Not really all that concerned. So Isaiah takes our hands again and guides us over under archway number 4. And he says, I need to paint you another picture. I need to give you a fourth word of encouragement. And as we stand under archway number 4, Isaiah says, God is caring enough to reign over your problems, to deal with your discouragement, to treat your pain. That's how Isaiah ends the chapter in verses 27 through 31. Why do you complain, Jacob? And say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord. My cause is disregarded by my God. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope or wait or trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Maybe, like Israel, you have felt like your way is hidden from God, like your cause has been disregarded by him. If I could kind of peel back the curtain on my own life a little bit, that's how I felt the last 5 or 6 years. But for you to understand the last 5 or 6 years, I've got to take you back a little bit further. 15 years ago, when my wife and I were preparing to be married, we began having kind of those future conversations about how many kids we wanted to have, and both of us felt like God had called us to adopt one day. So fast forward about 8 years, and our daughter was 2. We began to pray and do some research about adoption, and we decided that for us, it made the most sense to try and adopt through the foster care system. And so we did all of our paperwork, and we began praying every night the same prayer. As we would lie in bed, looking up at the ceiling, we would pray, God, bring the right child into our home. A child who needs a loving family. A child who just needs to be loved. We began praying that prayer every night, and we prayed that prayer for 3 years while we waited. If you're doing the math, that's over 1,000 nights of praying, and every night it felt the same way. Every night it felt like we were praying and our prayers were ascending to the ceiling, and then just bouncing back down to us. We felt like our way was hidden from God, our cause disregarded by him. And then, a little over 2 years ago, A baby just kind of fell into our laps. And we were able to bring our adoptive son home on his first birthday, a little over 2 years ago. But to be honest with you, the last 2 years have been even more challenging than the 3 before. Because of his first year of life, we knew that our son was going to have some developmental delays and some behavioral challenges. So we began praying a new prayer. God, equip us. Give us the tools that we need to raise this child, to love him the way that he needs to be loved. And everything we tried just didn't work. Night after night, we prayed. 700 more prayers. And it feels like our way has been hidden. Some of you feel that way. For the last 11 months, you have felt like your way is hidden, like your cause has been disregarded by God. And you wonder if he even cares. Maybe it's because of some church conflict, a decline in attendance numbers. Maybe a family that had been with your church from the very beginning just gets up and leaves one Sunday, never to return again. And you feel like your way is hidden. Maybe it's because of some things that you're dealing with internally. Anxiety, depression, worry, fear. And because of that, you feel like your way is hidden. Your cause disregarded by God. For others, maybe it's what's going on in the home. Some marital conflict, strife, a prodigal child, an unfavorable health diagnosis. And because of it, you feel like your way is hidden, your cause disregarded by God. Isaiah says God is big, God is strong, God is mighty, and God is close. He cares. He is close to the brokenhearted. So, church leader, let me just state the obvious. God sees you. He sees your brokenness. He sees your wounds. He sees your pain. He sees your hurt. He sees your anxiety and depression. He sees you. And Isaiah tells us that he enables those who are weak to find strength. He gives strength to the weary, power to the powerless. When we feel like we are unable to pick ourselves up off the ground, he enables us to walk. And when we are limping through life, he helps us run. When we've got no flight left in our wings, he enables us to soar on wings like eagles. But in the meantime, your task, my task, is to simply wait. To wait on God with hopeful expectancy, trusting that our good God will act in alignment with his good, gracious, and sovereign will. We wait because we know that up against our God, nothing can stand. Depression cannot stand against our God. Anxiety cannot stand against our God. Your pain cannot stand against our God. Church conflict cannot stand against our God. Political division cannot stand against our God. Your fear, your anxiety, and worry cannot stand against our God. Your broken family life cannot stand against our God. There is nothing that can stand opposed to our God. But in the meantime, we wait with hopeful expectancy. So as Isaiah paints this fourth image for us, he reminds us that God is caring enough to deal with your discouragement, your problems, your pain. But maybe right now you're asking the question that I'm asking. How long do we have to wait? Isaiah prophesied around the end of the 8th century BC. The people of Judah wouldn't even go into exile for another 100 years, and then 70 more years in exile. There were young men and women who walked into exile who would later take their dying breath, still waiting on God in exile. So I wish that I could stand here and look into this camera and tell you that the challenges that my family have been experiencing are about to end. That 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I could show my son this message and say, "Son, look how far you've come." But I know I have no such guarantees. And I wish I could tell you that the leadership pain that you are experiencing is almost over. That the season of church decline you've been going through is nearing its completion. That the division your church is experiencing is on its final lap. That your family problems at home are nearing their finish line. But I can't make that promise. I can remind you, however, that God sees, that God cares, that God reigns over your pain and your hurt. And I can also remind you that God doesn't just reign over your pain and your hurt, He also reigns in your pain and your hurt. Maybe you saw the video of a little 5-year-old boy who was preparing to get shots at the doctor's office. His mom was kind of bear hugging him, holding him back as the doctor prepared the injection site. And in that moment, as he was about to experience his pain, he couldn't think but to do anything other than declare his hope, his trust in his God. And so in his high-pitched 5-year-old voice, repeatedly, he just says the lines, "My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do." And in this upside-down season, filled with pandemics and political chaos, racial tension and rioting, depression and discouragement, maybe you and I just need to be reminded that our God is so big, so strong, and so mighty. There is nothing our God cannot do. He can even take this upside-down world and make it right side up. Because our God still reigns. And one day, everything that is upside down will be made right side up. But until then, friends, you and I, we just wait.